Hey everybody, welcome to Home Recording Made Easy and Mix Tip Tuesday, where every Tuesday I show you a new mixing tip to help you make more professional sounding mixes in your home studio. Before we get to this week's tip, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Make sure you hit that notification bell and also stick around till the end of the video, because at the end of the video I have something I want to give you absolutely free that's really going to help you with your mixing training, so be sure to stick around. Everybody, welcome. So in this week's Mix Tip Tuesday episode, we are going to talk about a quick little concept called do not EQ in solo. You want to always try to EQ in the context of the mix. And what exactly does that mean, Dave? And why would you want to do that? Okay, so one of the things about mixing, really the biggest thing, mixing in general, is taking, the basic definition of what we do as a mixer is taking all these individual elements, individual tracks that were recorded, right? And to blend them or mix them together to get them to sound good together as a cohesive piece of music. Now that includes not only getting the levels right and getting the panning right so it sounds interesting and it sounds good, but most importantly, from an EQ perspective, so tonally it sounds good, okay? EQ is probably, in my mind, the most important tool and weapon we have in our toolbox to get a mix to sound balanced with clarity and separation, panning and EQ, okay? When you EQ things in solo, to get things to sound great in solo, and we'll look as an example of this on a bass guitar in a second. It may sound fantastic when you're soloing up a specific instrument, you're EQing it to make it sound perfect. But then when you unsolo that and bring the rest of your mix back in, do you ever find at times that track doesn't sound great anymore, or you lose that track in the mix, or it's not as good, it doesn't sound as good as you thought it would, or it may muddy up your mix, so on and so forth. That happens a lot. And let me show you one example of that. So on this track here, we have this bass guitar. Okay, so here's the bass. Okay, we got an EQ here. You may think, sounds okay. May sound a little thin, right? So if you're EQing this in solo, your tendency may be, I want to round that out a little bit more. It sounds a little thin. And I'll exaggerate this a little so we can hear it. And maybe I want a little... to hear the fingers a little bit more. So before, sounds a little thin. Nice, right? A little bit bottom end, a little bit more fingers. Okay, that sounds great all by itself. Now, when you bring in the rest of your band, and let's just take our drums and our percussion here, just as an example. So here's our drum kit, drums and our percussion. Kind of, again, this is not really, it's kind of preliminary mixed. It's not a fully mixed track, so just keep that in mind. Okay. Now, the bass sounds in the context of the drums and the kick drum and in all this percussion sounds a little thick. It sounds a little muddy. Now, if I took away this EQ move, hear how it sits in the mix better? Before. Without the EQ. Much better, right? Okay, and that will become even more drastic when you bring in the other elements of your mix, depending on your, again, this is all program dependent and depending on what you have in your mix. But we also have keyboards here, we have guitars here, we have a horn section here. So that's with the increased EQ. After. Okay, so the bass sounds a lot more balanced. It doesn't have that muddiness down in the low end. Okay, so that's one example of where you can EQ something in solo and make it sound really great in solo, but then when you start to blend it together with the rest of your instruments, it becomes a problem. And a lot of times this happens, more times than not, I hear it in the low end of things. You know, somewhere between that maybe 70 or 80 and like 100, 120, 150 hertz, where you know, things like acoustic guitars, things like regular electric guitars, you know, anything, you know, around, you know, 190 hertz in solo sounds great. When you roll it off, it sounds really thin. But when you put it in the context of a mix, it sits a lot nicer. So whenever I'm mixing stuff, now a lot of times, if you've been watching any of my courses, and a lot of you guys that are watching this and gals that are watching this have been following me for a long time, but if you're someone new, listen up. You'll buy one of my mixing courses and you'll see a lot of times that I will EQ things in solo, and I will always say I should be doing this in the context of the mix, but I'm doing it from a teaching perspective so you can actually audibly hear what's going on if you don't have your ears tuned to it yet. But we always do the final tweaks in the context of a mix. So whenever I'm starting off a mix, like let's say we're working on drums, and I mix my kicks drum, the kick might be the first thing that we solo up, right? And then we get the kick sounding good, and then we go to the next track, and whether it's a snare or an outside kick mic or whatever, I'll always leave the first track that I already mixed still in play. I won't mute it and go on to the next one. Leave that in play, bring the next element in, right? Mix that with the other track so it sits nice, then bring the third element in, say a snare, mix that with the kicks playing, and then the snare bottom. You understand? So if you do things in the context of a mix, you're going to get your EQ moves a lot more accurate and well-balanced from an EQ perspective the first time. Now, what you can do as a trick until you get your ears tuned in is you can, while you're EQing, again, let's say our bass here, okay, we could turn up the bass guitar a little louder in the mix than all the other tracks, just so we could hear it better. It doesn't have to be at its final resting position, the fader, but in this case, so I might do something like that where the bass is a little loud in the mix, but I'm using it so I just let it sit on top of the mix so I can EQ it a little bit better. And I figure, okay, I don't want all that low end. I want just a little bit of a bump to hear some of the fingers, and then I can bring the fader down into its proper, you know, position from a volume perspective. And then once I think I have it at the right volume, I'll just mute it, turn the bass on and off in this case, and let's see where the bass really drops out and try to find where it's there and you hear it, obviously, but when you take it away, you notice that it's gone right away. All right? Okay, no bass. Okay, and it fits in really nice, and in this case, complements the kick drum really well. When you're working with something like bass, I'm listening to the kick drum. How does that bass guitar fit with the kick, right? Which one do I want to be a little bit more obvious? If it's a song where I want the bass to be a little louder than the kick, then I'll do that. And a song like this, which is kind of an R&B pop track, I want the kick drum to kind of be the groove, to kind of be the pulse. So therefore, I'm tucking that bass in right underneath the kick drum. Okay. Again, there's no rules in this. It's all, you know, subjective on how you want that from a volume perspective. But the lesson this week is don't EQ in solo. Okay. Always try to EQ in the context of the mix. Turn up your track a little bit more than you normally would so you could hear it sit on top of the mix, and then do your EQ. And again, use your ears, not your eyes. Don't have a preconceived notion of, okay, well, a guitar should be rolled off at everything from 100 hertz and down. Well, that's true depending on the guitar itself and how it was recorded. Maybe that's not the case. I've had mixes where bass guitars, I'm rolling off low cut filters at 200 hertz and everything down is rolled off. And you may say that doesn't sound right for a basic guitar. Typically it's not, but the particular bass guitar in that particular mix was recorded in such a way where it was very, very boomy. And it wasn't until I rolled it off and used my ears in the context of the mix where I heard where it sat well. Okay, so that is this week's Mix Tip Tuesday, Don't EQ in Solo. Now, if you want to learn more about EQ and you really want to dive in and get more into these concepts, I would tell you, go check out the course at homerecordingmadeeasy.com called EQ Made Easy. That's a fabulous course. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, I believe, or maybe 2 hours long. And we go through all different types of EQs, how to listen for EQs, different EQ kind of techniques. Really, really great course. Okay, so go check out EQ Made Easy. Now, I want to thank you for staying till the end of the video because I want to give you a couple of gifts. One is going to help you with EQ Made Easy. The first thing I want to tell you before we get to that is I want you to go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and I want to give you 5 free mixing training courses. That's right, 5 free courses at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Right on the homepage, it's worth a couple of $100. It's my gift to you for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and you can take all of these Mix Tip Tuesday concepts and you can employ them right away into those training courses. So go check that out. The second gift I want to give you is I want to give you a 25% discount coupon code. The coupon code is YouTube25. That's YouTube25. You use that at checkout and you can take 25% off any one of my training courses at homerecordingmadeeasy.com, even EQ Made Easy. So this is an opportunity for you. Go get EQ Made Easy and get it at 25% off. And lastly, if you really love the craft of mixing, but you really want to learn the craft of mixing in a very non-technical way, and even talk further about different mixing concepts and techniques and workflows and plugins and so on and so forth, then check out what I have going on in mixingmadeeasy.net. Again, all the links will be in the description box below, including the coupon code, so go check that out. And lastly, I want to hear from you. Comment below. How do you do EQ? Do you EQ in solo? Is this a brand new concept for you? What do you struggle with EQ? If you struggle with anything, what are some of the questions you have around using EQ and different types of EQs? I'd love to hear from you and help you any way I can. Leave comments below. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell. And until the next video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I will talk to you next week at Mix Tip Tuesday. Take care.